"You're not who you say you are." That's the first line of the email Kira read as her morning coffee went cold beside her. "Your documents didn't pass verification. According to our records, someone with your ID already works for us. Please resolve this discrepancy or consider your employment terminated." Kira's breath caught in her throat. She reread it twice, then again. Her fingers were shaking when the phone rang. "Hello, Miss Volkova?" The voice was clipped and formal. "This is Spurbank. We're calling regarding your overdue payment. You've defaulted on a loan of 700,000 rubles. If you do not respond within 72 hours, your case will be escalated." "I never," she began, but the line had already gone dead. Kira stood frozen, phone in one hand, laptop screen still glowing in the other. No job, a loan she didn't take. Panic curled in her chest like smoke. Her mind went to her sister. And right then, like a perfectly timed punch to the gut, her Instagram buzzed with a notification. Lana_V. The best things happen when you stop living someone else's life. The photo showed Lana radiant and smug, dressed in Kira's vintage white silk dress, her hand looped through Ilya's arm. Kira's fiance, their smiles were wide, perfect, frightening. Kira sat down slowly. Her ears were ringing, a white noise growing louder inside her skull. She clicked on the image, staring at it. Not just the dress, not just Ilya, the watch on Lana's wrist, the scarf tied in a way only Kira ever wore it. It was more than theft. It was a performance, a complete imitation. It felt surgical. She logged into her work portal, denied. Her backup emails reset. Then her medical records, denied. Everything denied. Her identity had been stolen, not by a stranger, but by blood. And just like that, a decade of stability crumbled in a morning. Kira didn't scream. She didn't cry. She sat in silence, staring into the void. Then she stood up and walked to the bookshelf. There behind the row of design books and old UX manuals was a small box wrapped in dust and tape. She pulled it down with reverence. Inside, an old iPhone 6, once belonging to Lana. Forgotten, discarded, but not erased, she powdered on. The screen flickered, then glowed faintly. No SIM, no service, but plenty of secrets. That was the first day Kira stopped reacting and started calculating. If the world believed she was crazy, then she'd make madness her ally. They wanted a ghost? She would haunt them. The silence of her apartment became both a sanctuary and a pressure chamber. Days blurred into one another, marked only by the soft whir of her laptop and the gentle hum of charging cables. Kira barely slept. She couldn't afford to, not when every second gave her sister more time to tighten the noose around her identity. She started methodically. The old iPhone 6 was sluggish but functional. Kira knew her way around encryption and backup files thanks to her years in UX design. She bypassed the lock screen with a jailbreaking tool she hadn't touched since college. It was almost poetic, the way her old skills, the ones she was told would never matter in real life, had become her lifeline. The phone's memory held ghosts, fragments of Lana's digital trail, hazy with time, but not entirely gone. A deleted voice memo recovered, a synced note titled New Narrative, calendar events that placed Lana at Kira's old appointments. There was even a contact named Ilya that linked to a second number Ilya had never shared. One night while scrolling through the phone's forgotten cache, she found it, a voice recording, partially corrupted, but recoverable. "You don't get it," Lana's voice crackled through the speakers. "Being her is easy. No one ever questions Kira. She's the safe one. The sad little broken bird. It's almost boring how much people want to protect her." Wait, Kira paused the file, hands cold. That word again, broken. As if her years of anxiety were an act, as if her silence was a costume. The next day, Kira did something she hadn't done in years. She visited their childhood home. The house was quiet, their parents were out, but the scent of their old life lingered: detergent, floor polish, the faint perfume of a woman who had stopped noticing her daughters long ago. She wasn't here for nostalgia. She was here for the attic. Buried under boxes of seasonal decorations and forgotten photo albums, she found it. Her old toy fox, a relic from when she and Lana still shared secrets instead of sabotage. Kira stared at its matted fur, the stitches along its paw she had sewn herself after Lana tore it in a fight. Even then, she had been patching what her sister broke. She took the fox home, and that night she began assembling the box of return, a black file box where she collected evidence like a war historian preparing for trial. Printouts of chat logs, voice recordings, screenshots. A photo of her own with Ilya taken a month before everything fell apart, where Lana had scribbled over her face and written Nevsegda Tavoya on the back. Every item was a scar, a breadcrumb, a mirror of betrayal. She didn't call the police. She didn't message Ilya. She didn't confront Lana. That wasn't how this war would be won. Instead, she mailed an anonymous envelope to Lana's workplace. Inside was a flash drive labeled Ayatavia Vihu. I see you. Another went to Ilya. No words, just a photo from Lana's phone of the two of them in bed, time-stamped weeks before he'd broken up with Kira. And one final envelope to her parents. Not for revenge, just the truth. No return address, no name. The next day, Kira dressed in silence. Her style hadn't changed, sharp, classic, unapologetically understated. But the woman in the mirror was no longer someone the world could ignore. The phone buzzed once, a blocked number. A breathless message. What the hell did you do, Kira? She smiled, closed the box, and whispered to herself, checkmate's not loud, it's deliberate. It started small. Lana's Instagram went silent for the first time in months. No brunch photos, no gym selfies, no saccharine captions about manifesting abundance. Just a blank story with a black screen and a single question mark. Kira watched it like a spectator at a slow-motion car crash. By then, she had already switched SIM cards twice and was using a laptop scrubbed clean of all metadata. She worked from cafes no one she knew had ever heard of, paid in cash, and used VPNs that bounced her signal from Zurich to Singapore. If they wanted to find her, they'd have to work for it. And they were starting to look. She noticed it when she passed Ilya's car parked across from her apartment building. He never left it on this street, not even when they were together. The second time, she spotted again. Same spot. Engine running, windows tinted, and that was when she knew Lana had started to panic, because Lana, for all her charm, had never been good at chaos she didn't control. The flash drives Kira sent weren't just breadcrumbs, they were psychological needles. Drip-fed, just enough to fracture certainty, not enough to destroy, yet. That was the art of it. Kira had learned the difference between vengeance and annihilation. The former made noise, the latter crept in silence until it became the only sound in the room. Her messages were everywhere now, hidden in places only Lana would recognize. A sticker on her front door peeled back to reveal a Polaroid of them as children, smiling arm in arm with the words, "Still think you can be me?" scrawled across the bottom. A flash of her old password scrawled on a fogged mirror at her gym. A voicemail from a number ending in 0, playing nothing but Lana's own voice whispering, she doesn't exist anymore. Lana started posting less. Then not at all. But Kira didn't stop. She created burner accounts and carefully fed stories into the network Lana built so meticulously. The false friends, the workplace confidants, the followers who didn't know either of them but thought Lana was some glittery phoenix. One tweet under a fake name. Is it true your influencer friend used her sister's name to fake a degree? Another. Heard someone at Lana's company got promoted because they slept with the ex of someone they sabotaged. Kira didn't need to say names, she only needed to imply. And implication in the digital age was a loaded gun. It wasn't long before Lana's brand partnership posts began quietly disappearing. First the boutique skincare line, then the modeling gig for a local jewelry brand. No public fallout, just silence. The kind that deafens people who depend on applause. Meanwhile, Kira was no longer just collecting data, she was crafting a performance. She began editing the recordings she had pulled from Lana's phone, weaving them together into a narrative. Not just evidence, but art. The result was a 7-minute audio montage. Lana's voice, repeating, twisting. No one ever loved her. It's disgusting how easy it is. She always needed saving. So I became her, and now I'm the version everyone wants. Kira layered it with ambient music, something low, crawling, almost hypnotic. She even added pauses, breaths, echoes. She called the file Becoming Her, and she saved it for the night of the party because the invitation came like a dare. A digital flyer forwarded to her anonymously with the subject line, Lana Volkova's Senior Creative Director Celebration, to be held at a rooftop hotel bar downtown, hosted by Leah's company, sponsored by Lana's new brand. Kira studied the design, her own design. The layout, typography, button spacing was unmistakably hers. The last layout she'd worked on before Her name was scrubbed from the team roster. She laughed quietly, alone in her room. The thief was about to be crowned queen. So Kira did what queens do. She prepared her return. On the night of the event, she didn't dress to be noticed. She wore black, clean lines, minimalist heels, no makeup but a sharp red lip. She melted into the crowd like smoke, slipping past the clipboard girl and champagne trays without drawing a single curious glance. From the back of the crowd, she watched Lana take the stage, smiling, posing, everything carefully curated. And just as the applause began to rise, Kira pulled out her phone, opened the file, pressed play. The first words rang out loud and unfiltered. You don't understand how easy it is to become her. No one ever loved Kira. Not really. Heads turned. The music stopped. Lana froze, blinking, lips twitching as her own voice filled the room. Kira stepped forward, letting her presence register like a thunderclap. For the first time, she was the one bathed in the spotlight. And as Lana's voice played on, fraying into self-incrimination, the perfect laugh she stole began to disintegrate in front of an audience dressed in black tie and disbelief. Kira didn't flinch. This wasn't revenge. This was reclamation. The room went still, not quiet, still as though every breath was being held in collective suspension, the kind of silence that vibrates where people become statues, afraid to move in case they miss what comes next. Lana stood center stage, frozen, her smile faltered, gloss lips trembling. The projection behind her, a slideshow of curated career photos, continued playing like a cruel joke, flashing scenes of triumph over the soundtrack of betrayal. I'm the version everyone wants. Kira. She was always in the way. The voice was unmistakably hers. The guests, colleagues, clients, investors shifted uncomfortably, exchanging glances. A few already had their phones out, some recording, others frantically messaging. Whispers began threading through the tension like static. Kira stood at the edge of the crowd, phone still in hand, audio still playing. Lana blinked rapidly like a puppet whose strings had snapped mid-performance. Turn that off, she snapped into the mic, her voice high and cracking. No one moved. No one obeyed. Ilya, near the front, turned toward the source of the sound and froze when he saw her. Kira, still, silent, eyes locked on Lana, expression unreadable. Kira, what is this? He asked, taking a step toward her. As she didn't answer him, she didn't need to. She let the final lines of the audio play out. It's not stealing if no one ever noticed her to begin with. She was just a placeholder. I'm the upgrade. The sound cut off. The room exhaled as if released from a chokehold. Lana stepped forward, breathless. This is a setup, she said, voice trembling. It's fake. Edited, she's sick. She's always been sick. Gaslighting. The oldest trick, but this time no one rushed to agree. Ilya's face contorted. He looked at Kira again, really looked at her. And whatever he saw there wasn't madness. It was control. Kira, he whispered almost in disbelief, is it true? She stepped forward, her voice even, cold. Yes, is it real? He asked, gesturing toward the silent speakers. Those were her words. Kira reached into her bag and pulled out a clear evidence envelope. Inside, a printed transcript. Time-stamped, metadata attached, QR code leading to the backup in encrypted cloud storage. She held it out without ceremony. A journalist from a digital news outlet stepped forward and took it. He'd been invited by Lana herself for media coverage. Now, his camera was rolling. The irony was almost cinematic. Lana tried to snatch the envelope, but Kira had already let go. The journalist stepped back, eyes wide. Lana Volkova, he said aloud. Did you say these things about your sister? Lana's face crumbled in real time. None of this would have happened if she hadn't, her voice cracked, devolving into incoherent fragments. And then she snapped. With no warning, Lana lunged across the floor and slapped Kira hard. A gasp rose from the crowd like a wave. Champagne glasses trembled. Someone dropped a fork. Someone else screamed. And just like that, the narrative shifted in a heartbeat. There, under the golden chandeliers, with cameras rolling, Lana Volkova revealed who she truly was. Not a visionary, not a victim, but a narcissist unmasked. Security moved quickly, but not quickly enough. Kira didn't touch her face. She didn't recoil. She simply stared. You just proved everything I've been saying, she said, voice like glass. Thank you for the final scene. The flash of phones lit up the moment like a press conference. Lana was escorted off stage, shouting about fakes, about stolen lives, about jealousy, but no one followed. No one believed. Even the applause, when it came, wasn't for her. It was polite, dismissive. Ilya tried to speak again, but Kira was already turning. She didn't look at him, not once. not when he whispered her name, not when his voice cracked with something that might have been guilt. She left him behind with the rest of them. On her way out, she passed a woman by the bar, one of Lana's closest colleagues, the one who had blocked Kira on social media months ago, without explanation. Now, the woman looked away in shame. Kira didn't say a word. She didn't need to. Power, when reclaimed, doesn't need volume. She exited into the cool night air, the city humming with indifference around her. Her heels clicked softly on the concrete, each step pulling her farther away from the wreckage she didn't create, but no longer had to carry. When she reached the corner, she checked her phone. No calls, no new messages, only one notification, a new email, subject, your manuscript submission, accepted. The body read, "We found your story utterly compelling. A voice like yours needs to be heard. Let's discuss publication." For the first time in months, she smiled. Not with triumph, not with vengeance, but with peace. Kira didn't look back. Not at the hotel glowing behind her like a stage set left in ruins. Not at the phone still filming, the whispers still blooming. Not even at the broken reflections of herself others had built and tried to live inside. She walked through the city like it belonged to her now, not because anyone gave her permission, but because she had reclaimed it one truth at a time. Her apartment was still mostly bare, a couch, a coffee table, a potted plant that leaned toward the window with stubborn life. The kind of space that would have felt cold to the woman she used to be. Now, it felt like clarity. She peeled off her coat, placed her phone face down, and sat on the floor next to her desk. The light from her laptop washed over her like moonlight. She opened the folder titled manuscript_final doc6 and reread the first line. This is not a confession, this is a recovery. The publisher's offer had come 2 hours after the party. One of the guests, someone she didn't even remember speaking to, had sent the audio file to a journalist. The story had already started spreading. Socialite exposed by sister in audio scandal. They got the details wrong, as they always do, but Kira, what mattered was the new message waiting in her inbox. "We believe your voice speaks to something deeper about identity, family, and the cost of silence. We'd love to work with you." She stared at it a moment longer, then hit reply. "Let's talk." Outside, the wind rattled the window panes. She reached for the fox plush, the one from the attic, worn but intact, and set it beside her keyboard. The stitches were still there, her stitches. Not perfect, but holding. Her phone vibrated once. She didn't open it, just deleted the message. He had made his choice in silence. He didn't get a voice now that everything was loud. Another vibration. Block number. She let it ring. Let him wonder. Let him feel the quiet. Reputation, she had learned, was nothing but costume, a fragile garment others dressed you in. What mattered was what you built when no one was clapping. She had been erased, rewritten, misdiagnosed, and discarded, but she was still here, not louder, just sharper. A knock at the door startled her. She rose cautiously, her shadow long against the wall. When she opened it, there was no one in the hallway, just a small package wrapped in plain brown paper. No note, no name. Inside was a photo. She recognized it immediately. Two girls in matching dresses, standing in front of a birthday cake with uneven candles. Lena's arm was around her. They were smiling, and on the back, in Lena's handwriting, "We could have been everything." Kira stared at the photo for a long time, emotion a quiet ache behind her ribs. She didn't cry. She folded the photo carefully, slid it between the pages of her manuscript, and closed the laptop. Then she picked up her pen. On a fresh sheet of paper, she wrote, "This was my life, and now it's finally mine again." The fox plush leaned against her arm, and for the first time in a long time, Kira exhaled without fear.